I'd like to call this meeting to order at 9:29 on September 23rd at 7:35. If we could please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. The first task would be approval of the agenda. I do notice, Dr. Willett, you had in our board packet, you have the field and grounds agreement as K1, where it should be under board action, but somehow it's on the agenda as H6. So
yeah, that should not be. I would just maybe move H6 to K1 and just.
Because you had it right in the packet, but on the actual agenda, and I didn't want to bother you. I was like, okay, well, we'll just deal with it here. So I don't know.
I'm not sure what's posted. Let me take a quick look at what's posted, but.
Do you want me to make a motion, Ash, to just move it?
Yeah, let's go ahead and do that.
I'd like to make a motion. Christina Plord, I'd like to make a motion to move H6 Field and Grounds Agreement under Superintendent's Report down to board action as K1.
Jacob Mari, second.
Okay, any discussion? Would anyone have anything to say? Okay, we'll do a roll call vote and just go through that. Karen?
Aye.
Jacob?
Aye.
Lord?
Aye.
Griffin?
Aye.
Tony?
Aye.
Amy?
Aye.
Dana?
Aye.
Aye as well. Therefore, we will move that field and grounds agreement under to K1. Okay. That was the only thing I saw. And of course, we have the approval of the agenda with the September 9th, which goes under approval of minutes. I don't know, Dr. Willett, you might be busy. I was looking, I was like, okay, no problem. We'll move to the approval of minutes of September 9th of 2020.
Jacob,
Christina,
move to approve the September 9th meeting minutes.
Christina Plord, second.
Okay, discussion. I do have a clarification that I wanted to make on that. The way that it kind of sounds like I'm trying to replace Tony in the minutes. And I was just actually, that I'm not trying to replace him as secretary duties. I know he's busy on a business trip. However, I just wanted to offer him assistance if he had needed it because he had missed a couple of meetings. Kate did volunteer her services, and I did get in touch with both of them, Tony and Kate, so he knows that Kate is willing to help out whenever need be. And if not, he said that he has them all. And so, Tony, tonight you're going to have a long time to talk. And that was my only kind of correction. I just kind of want a clarification on that because it just seemed like I was replacing Tony and saying, forget it, that's it. You missed too many meetings and I'm going to replace you. Did anyone else have anything else under discussion? Okay, I will do the roll call vote. Karen?
Aye.
Jacob?
Aye.
Lord?
Aye.
Griffin?
Aye.
Tony?
Aye.
Rini?
Aye.
Dana?
Aye.
Aye as well. Therefore, our minutes are approved with 3 changes. Next section is the public participation. At this time, we will have Tony the timer count for 2 minutes. We will have him give a 30-second warning notice. If you could, when you speak, please state your name and address. And at this time, too, we can have our board members lower their blue hands so that the public could raise their hands and we can call on them from there. Somebody else's. Dr. Gorilla, can you find who's is unmuted there? There we go.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Colleen.
Hey, Ash, can you hear me?
Yes.
I never know because I'm always switching computers. Hey, Tony. Hopefully everything is well. Colleen, you to check 12 Blueberry Hill Road. Just obviously saw the new updates. I don't have kids anymore at Birch Grove or TIS. I'm just wondering how everybody's going to be safely distanced apart from each other. Because as I remember, those rooms were pretty small. But I'm sure you're going to cover a lot of that later on in tonight's meeting. But I really wanted to personally thank TEPTO for donating or amazing $30,000 towards Chromebooks. Their dedication to our schools is greatly appreciated. I definitely just wanted to point that out today. I mean, a lot's going to be talked about with the new plan or the adjusted plan, but I definitely want to make sure TEPTO was obviously acknowledged as it is in the agenda. And as far as technology, I think all kids should be able to have some sort of device in their hands. Just makes their education experience that much greater. Thank you.
Thank you, Colleen. At this time, would anyone else like to have put their little hand up, and I will call on you? Okay, going once, going twice. Okay, we will move on to correspondence. Tony, this is your moment to shine for bringing us up to date.
I hope stage fright doesn't come over me, but all right. So we have an email asking about the availability of district Chromebooks. An email responding to the perceived misrepresentation of the Tolland Public School community and lack of civility of BOE members. The writer voices her disappointment over emails sent to Commissioner Cardona. The writer also discusses concern over the lack of accountability measures in the civility clause and suggests the creation of an ethics committee. An email expressing disappointment that most of the meeting of 26 August focuses on a letter to the commissioner rather than on school reopening. Email articulating difficulties faced by the writer's child with online live streaming days. Writer asks if first graders could join the kindergarten schedule. Writer asks for a teacher to focus on online learning specifically. An email requesting that the next evaluation period remain PIP. Email recommending that the next evaluation period offer a 4-day in-school period in addition to PIP and full remote. Email offers data to support the benefits of such an option. Email articulating the importance of increasing the number of in-person school days and to articulate the difficulties of teachers attempting to teach both in-person and remote learners. An email thanking Dr. Willett and the Board of Education for working hard to ensure that the transition into classrooms was as safe as possible. The writer advocates for increasing the number of in-person days. An email asking Dr. Willett and the Board of Education to wait one more tracking period to allow for impacts created by sports starting before transitioning out of PIP. An email advocating for Tolland Public Schools to offer a 5-day in-school option for all students. An email following up on a previous data point concerning families that would move to fully remote learning if the district moved to fully in-person. The writer asks if the board is following this data and if this has affected their considerations. Email supporting a full reopening of the Tolland Public School. Email supporting a continuance of PIP to ensure ongoing health and safety. Writer asks what the process is for cleaning a classroom where positive contact was. Writer asks if a note can then be sent to the students in an infected student's cohort. Writer asks if a process can be put in place to pre-screen staff and students via an online app. An email urging the district to stay on a hybrid schedule until we have a better idea what the year will look like. Email asking that the district remain cautious before moving back into full in-person. Writer feels that the current model is working well for their family. Email asking to keep the learning model status quo. Email requesting that the elementary age kids attend school more than 2 days a week. Excuse me. Writer stresses that her children are experiencing health issues due to the pandemic and long stretches of remaining at home time. Email complimenting the board for their work listening to the community. Writer requests a survey be sent to the parents. Email requests opening schools full time. Email from a writer who articulates stressing the data behind letting children go back to school. Writer thanks the Board of Education for their efforts. Writer then requests that a full option be offered so that parents can choose what is best for their families. Email writing to support full reopening during the next phase. Writer discusses concerns with the financial and logistical challenges with the FRC. Writer requests that the board consider the mental health and financial burdens associated with the current educational options. Email requesting that the decision be based solely upon student safety and not on daycare or social aspects. Email concerned by the perceived shortage of paraprofessionals in the town. Writer believes that more effort should be made towards para-pay. Writer does not support middle schoolers and high schoolers going to full in-person. Email from a writer that does not believe the time is right to go to full in-person. Writer requests that the PIP option is kept even if full is offered. Email articulating the condition of the state and the area COVID numbers. Writer believes that the time is right for a full in-person. Email stating that the safest option is to continue PIP for another 21-day period. Email recommending a 4 or 5 day in-person choice. Writer states that the hybrid model is creating undue stress upon our children. Email recommending an increase in the number of in-person school days. Writer sees differences in their children's approach to in-person days versus online learning days. Email requesting to know what indicators Dr. Willett uses to determine what the best course of action. Email discussing online discussions about moving from the hybrid model to full in-person. The writer believes that it is too soon to be making such a decision. Email discussing the writer's belief that the current option be maintained until the end of the quarter. Email articulating the writer's belief that the hybrid model continue. Email stating that the writer's belief that the model provides a balance that keeps students connected to their teachers and peers while helping to maintain a safe physical distance. 2 emails expressing that Tolland did not fight for our football team. Email expressing concerns with the conditions of the school if the district returns to a full in-person mode. Email voicing concern if students are rushed into a 5-day in-person mode. Email requesting a continuation of the hybrid model. Writer states they will find it difficult to send their child to school if a full in-person is offered. Email stressing that things are going well with the hybrid model. Email stating the writer's belief that the current educational model be used in Tolland are balanced, prudent, and appropriate. Email expressing the writer's concern for returning to full in-person. Writer discusses the possible effects on lunch and face shield time. Writer states that the priority of the schools is to educate and to do so safely. Email asking how desks will be oriented to support social distancing in the case of full time in school. Email stating the writer's opposition to full in-person learning and preference to remain with PIP. Email asking that Dr. Willett and the Board of Education trust the surveys rather than asking parents to answer a survey and write into the board. Email passionately commenting on restrictions to football practices. Email asking for more fiscal support for families struggling under the current model. Writer also requests that the district be aware of the weight of students' backpacks during transit. Email expressing disapproval for sending students back to school full-time. Email stressing the need to balance the risk of having students in school full-time with the benefits. This writer stresses that making the safest choice involves recognizing that there is no such thing as absolute safety. Writer shows the current data supports the full in-person education is best for the majority of students. Writer urges the board members to be willing to ask tough questions and offer alternatives to the superintendent's recommendations. Email concern with the number of paraprofessionals available for the K through 4 day in-school option. Email advocating a 4-day in-person option for 6th through 12th grades. Writer points out that the significant benefits for the students' mental and emotional health exist for these grades as well. Email requesting specifics on staffing. Writer is concerned that there will be enough paras in Birch Grove and TIS to meet 504 and IEP grades. Emails requesting answers to 1, how many paraprofessional positions remain unfilled? 2, are the needs of the students being fulfilled? And 3, how does moving to a 4-day all-in affect the number of needed paraprofessionals? Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Tony, for that update. Okay, we will go to points of information. I did want to just say a couple of things. I did look into our minutes, and I printed out the minute. It was from our February 26th, where we discussed the reading letters into the minutes in the meetings, and we came to a consensus that we were going to lean toward the consolidation of the emails that Tony has been accounting for. I do believe that we don't have the protocol actually written, so that would be something that we would do need to take a look at. But in case anybody wanted to go through the whole discussion, it was February 26th that we had that. So just wanted to point that out. So Tony, I don't know, at some point if you can get that onto policy and we can have that discussion and get that actually in like a protocol set.
I'll add that to the tracker that we're working.
Perfect.
The policy's a little busy right now with some of the COVID type things, but we will.
Understandable. Perfect. Okay, members at this time, Tony, you have your hand up.
Yep, I just wanted to thank everybody. For the first time, I utilized Facebook to ask some questions and got a whole lot of responses. I just wanted to say thank you to everybody that took the time to write on that. I appreciate the input.
Okay, thank you, Tony. Karen?
Yes, just to dovetail on Tony's comment, I actually think that it's not appropriate for board members to be asking on social media a survey for feedback from parents. It's actually undermining the work of the superintendent who was already doing his own survey, and it undermines the work of the board. And he's getting information for himself. And our work should be done as a board in public session. So, excuse me, I'm just gonna say that I think it's inappropriate and I think it should be part of our social media policy.
Okay, thank you, Karen. Any other board members at this time? Okay, Tony?
My apologies, Madam Chair. I hadn't lowered my hand for my previous comment.
Oh, okay. Dana?
Hi, good evening, everybody. I just wanted to, first of all, Tony, I'm sure that you're parched from repeating all those emails and such. because there was probably, I would venture to say 70 some odd emails just in the last few days. So I definitely want to thank the community for reaching in. I know it does take time to reach out and express your feelings about something as passionate and important as your child's education and your neighbor's children's education and so on and so forth. So keep those coming. But I will ask Tony if you would be so kind for the next meeting, because you did bring correspondence back from the 9/9 meeting, but we were still missing from 8/26. So there's just some other correspondence if we could hit on. And I know that, I remember Ashley had said it was a couple of meetings. So if we could just get up, just kind of catch up, and that'd be greatly appreciated. I'm sorry, Tony, you'll probably have to have some warm tea and some water next time, but thank you. That's all I have. Again, I look forward to talking about the TEPTO donation tonight and everything that our educators and staff are doing for our children. So thank you.
Thank you, Dana.
Sure, just a point of information, just for clarification. Do we want me to read those previous ones as part of my normal report, or just bring those to add to the minute?
If you could just bring them and actually put them into the record on our meeting, and then we can also, that way everything is equal and everything's voided out. We're good. You're missing 2 meetings, Tony.
My apologies. We'll rectify.
Thank you. Okay. Anyone else? Okay. Let's go to the student representative report. We have Alexandra and Summer.
Hi, everyone. So yesterday, the seniors met with their guidance counselors to talk about colleges because the application deadlines are coming up soon. And that's basically what I have. Alexandra, do you want to add anything?
Seniors opted into took the in-school SAT this morning, and because of COVID, this was the first opportunity for many of us to take it, so we're glad we got that in. And then Students Council had its second official meeting this week, and DECA had its first in-person meeting on Tuesday, and we'll hold a second one on Thursday for the B group. And then a bunch of other clubs are still in the process of starting back up, so we're looking forward to seeing that. But I think that's it.
And kind of to add on, guidance counselors are going to be meeting in the next about 2 weeks to have individual appointments with students regarding college decisions. That's it. Thank you.
Did you guys have any update for the mental health that you guys were speaking about last month for October?
Yep. So we're working, I think a lot of Student Council, we want to kind of rebrand it as Wellness Week, just in to get it everywhere and throughout the whole school. And we're looking at the end of October right now. We're trying to get speakers and stuff finalized, but end of October. And then I think that's our main focus up until then.
Thank you, ladies. Okay, we will start with the superintendent's report. Dr. Willett, we will go with that COVID-19 update.
Thank you. Yep. So COVID-19 update, just to try to give everybody, a sense of where we're at, and we will continually kind of circle around to this. Also, knowing that I'll be posting these kinds of updates, DPH and Eastern Highland Health District typically provide information on a reoccurring basis. And as I receive that information, I post it into the blogs and also will report it out to the Board of Ed. Currently, right now, in terms of where we've been for kind of COVID-like and flu-like illness, we've processed now, at this point, it's updating a little bit from what's in the board packet, but we're close to the range of 25 to 30 submissions from families that are reporting COVID-like illnesses. And usually what happens is that results in a quarantine period until a alternative diagnosis or a PCR test can be provided. And so we've been in also processing people that have been traveling and visiting other states, and some of those states fall under the Connecticut Travel Advisory. So we're in a state where we have about 25 of those situations we've been processing. I meet every morning and every evening on this. And the nursing director and staff is doing an amazing job. And kudos to the community, because the community is taking it seriously. They're sending in information, and we're processing it And the process is working quite well right now, keeping everybody safe. So, we're in that space. We had about 2 COVID cases in Tolland, as reported from the EHHD, not in the Tolland Public Schools specifically, but in Tolland town proper. And the data was posted as part of this agenda item that came from the EHHD with respect to the towns within the district of the Eastern Highland Health and where some of their stats are. So, but you can see that Mansfield has a bit of a bump happening there, largely attributable to the situation with UConn and the students. And there's some reverberating effects, obviously, that you can see in terms of some of the numbers. But at this time, I believe they feel that things are pretty consistent and that the threat condition remains low, or the concern level remains low. So this is meant to give just a general update for it, but I do try to provide in the blog a series of updates as they come. And so there's a little bit different of an update here. That number that is 37 for September 12th was updated to about 40 in the most recent Eastern Highland Health update that is posted on the blog. So if you see one on the blog, it's going to be a little bit more up to date than the one that's in the Board of Ed packet. And typically that'll be the case because the ones I put on the blog will be updated to that moment in time. So the most recent one is from 9/22 at 4:40 p.m. And that one has the numbers slightly up from the one that's in the board packet. At this time, we've spent about $104,000 on COVID-related financial impacts. Most of the composition of that is face masks, shields, hand sanitizers, cleaning products, plexiglass, touchless water dispensers, and the Zuno disinfection of buses. So that's where the majority of those expenses are of that 104. And, and so I'll kind of stop there, but that's where we're at in terms of, impact.
Okay. I will go to board members, and I'm not sure if this is the section that you would like to touch base upon the school decision as well, or if you would like to wait till later, because I'm sure you're going to have questions about that with all the.
Yeah, I mean, sure, I can. I definitely respond to any questions that come up about that. We, the board. The blog has on it a decision tree, the process that we go through in terms of making decisions with respect to that. We do have a district COVID committee that has a number of stakeholders on it. Let me see if I can share the screen. I don't know if everybody can see this at home, but I'm going to give it a shot. And this is what I did post in the blog. The decision-making process for coming up with a determination is something that lasts weeks, and it includes a number of stakeholders as well as constantly, reviewing the information and re-meeting on it. I have at this point probably 2 to 3 meetings a day on COVID and the status of things. Now, between the Department of Public Health, conversations and meetings with EHHD and meetings with the local Tolland teams, we are constantly talking about the status and condition of things. So this represents most of the considerations with respect to how we come to a determination. It's a review of the literature and reputable information. Examples of that would be the Harvard Global Institute, Johns Hopkins, the Connecticut Travel Advisory, the State of Connecticut addendums. Other considerations are considering the agency guidelines and directives. That would be CDC, DPH, EHHD. They each have their own directives that we need to follow. And, so there are guidelines and directives and requirements. Obviously, we're in alignment with all of the requirements and are careful to do that. Review of state thresholds and indicators. Those are the things that you see typically seen referenced in Governor Lamont's presentations. He talks about the leading indicators and the secondary indicators. So during the process, and many times a week, actually, we're reviewing the data about the leading indicator, the number of COVID cases on a 7-day rotation average, as per 100,000. If you get above 10, then you're going into the moderate condition. Right now, we're in the low condition, which is below 10 per 100,000. The secondary indicators are things like percent product, positivity rate, the number of positive tests over the total number of tests in a 7-day rolling period, the number of new COVID-19 hospitalizations per 100,000 over a 7-day rolling average, and then COVID-like and influenza-like illness or symptomatic surveillance. We do a lot of that symptomatic surveillance in district through the methods that I was talking about before. We put out the links, we put out the hotline, people are reporting and sending information into that, and we follow up on that. So it's become a very large part of the role that I'm filling and others are filling, a lot of work for the director of nursing and others. But, we do follow up on those and collect data and information about each of those situations. And then, we also review the school-based data and trends, which has to do with tracking those COVID-like illnesses and reaching out to the families and making sure appropriate steps are being taken. But also, a daily review and every morning review of our attendance and anything that might look like it indicates a trend heading in one direction or another. And of course, all of this is in collaboration and constant communication with the Eastern Highland Health District. And finally, there are very frequent meetings with the stakeholders in the district, the administrative unit, the TEA is part of the process, support unit and paraprofessionals are part of the process, facilities, part of the process, transportation, Board of Education members are part of the process, medical nursing, health personnel are part of it. And then again, conferencing directly with the Highland Health District. So these decisions are made with a lot of input, a lot of information, and in the case of the educational option for this particular time, there is so much that could be said about this. I'll leave some of it to people's questions and answering some of their questions more directly. Both today and also tomorrow, there is a superintendent's open forum. We, in a board meeting, we only have so much time at the forum. We'll allow, an opportunity for community members to come and ask other questions and get further articulation, and that's tomorrow at 4 o'clock. But, and then another one will be on the 29th. The one for tomorrow at 4 o'clock is to help parents and guardians get some answers so that they can make the appropriate choice for themselves. They may want to enroll their children in remote learning if that's what they're feeling. They may want to avail themselves of the 4-day option that is available pre-K-5. So getting getting some answers tomorrow at 4 o'clock may help parent guardians make some decisions with respect to how they want to handle their situation with their children. So that'll be available for further articulation and questions tomorrow if we don't get to them tonight. And I could go on for at least a half an hour talking about all of the different kinds of things that are considered here in more granular detail. Then maybe the best thing to do is just answer the questions as they come. I did hear one question come up with respect to workforce, which I think was posed by Ms. Udacek. Just to circle back to that, we are obviously and do typically at the beginning of every year have a transition in workforce. In this particular case, I think she was asking about paras. So we had about 20 paras who have decided that they would rather pursue something else. We're in the process of replacing those paras and putting out ads and working through the workforce implications of that. And we are getting there. I think over the last few days, we've added 8 or 9. Our ads are still out there. And we also have made contact with a temp agency that may be able to provide an additional 8 or 9. So we're in a situation where, over the next few days to weeks, I think we're going to restabilize that. But, we're in a situation right now where we are providing educational service. We'll continue to do so. I am going to make sure, and it's part of my responsibility as well as every other educator's, to make sure the health and safety of the students are maintained, and we will do that. So we are going through a bit of a transition with that, and as is most of the districts in the state of Connecticut. It's not an unusual situation to be in, and paraprofessionals are an incredibly valuable part of the team. But in this town and in others, the COVID situation has had many people reflecting on what they want to do. And so, we and other districts are dealing with that. And we are working through that. And I do anticipate that, we will stabilize that situation. So before I go any further, maybe the best thing to do would be to see if any board members have any questions, and then get to that point, public participation. I can answer anything else that comes up if people have questions there too.
The other thing I wanted to have you just touch base on is maybe the Birch Grove and TIS spacing that seemed to come up a lot too. If you want to speak to any of that.
Yeah, the portable classrooms we have, in Birch Grove in particular, you have a $9 million portable project, and many have noted that when we did actually show people what that looked like, that looks like a school. The Birch Grove Portables has its limitations, and it'll be nothing compared to the building that Tolland is getting for almost 90% reimbursement. But we're in a space both with BGP and TIS that we are within the state's requirements. The state has put out some pretty clear clear guidelines and requirements about what's necessary. We are within those requirements. We're within the guidelines, and we're not going to be doing anything that would be in a violation of DPH or the state of Connecticut. CDC's recommendations about 6 feet. Most districts are not going to be in a space where they can provide 6 feet, but it isn't a requirement by the state of Connecticut, and the state of Connecticut has allowed for the thresholds that they've set up, knowing that. And the reason that they have laid out the information in the way that they have is because the indicators of prevalence and the things that they're using for data points suggest that there is safety. There's no 100% guarantee, but there is safety within the guidelines that the state of Connecticut has provided, and we're going to stay within those guidelines. And we will, in those guidelines, provide that environment, a safe and stable environment for kids. You can't ever take away all risk, but based on the levels of prevalence right now, and based on where we are as a state, which could change in a month or two, we have to closely watch that. And based on our own local data, our own COVID-like rates and what's happening, our own internal capacity to handle these things as they arise, I believe we are in a space where the best educational option for kids pre-K2, pre-K5 is to be in school for those 4 days. Wednesday alternative, cleaning day, Wednesday remote learning day.
We need
Sorry, I'm just trying to make sure that we have please be reminded to mute your speakers if you do come on. I just muted that one, Ms. Lundgren. So, trying to get my train of thought. So we are in a good space to be able to provide the best opportunities for kids pre-K5 that is sensitive to family needs, that is responding to, the need to stay on top of the COVID situation. And, the best place for the kids to be, will be for those families who feel comfortable with it in school for those 4 days. So that option is provided because it gives us the best opportunity to serve children. And looking very closely at the impacts and what has happened over the last, month or so, the district has built its capacity with respect to the training and conditioning of kids to use the PPE. They've been using it really, really well. And, adolescents and kids are kids. So there's always going to be things that we have to face with respect to making sure everybody's, behaving in the way that they should. But largely what I got back from community members and family members and the teachers and the staff was that the kids really were falling in and complying. They were, they were doing what they needed to do. And that's one of the major and most important aspects of the situation. So we're also going to be reviewing lunch waves and spreading those populations out a little bit more now. As we move into the October 5th through October 30 period, and constantly be reevaluating, what our processes are to make sure we're maximizing social distancing to the greatest extent possible, while maintaining, once again, our expectations of keeping the PPE on and our screening and our, careful watch of the COVID-like illness symptoms and quarantining and isolating those students and populations that look like something could be brewing. And I am confident that, we are doing that so aggressively that, being able to have kids in school 4 days a week is going to, to really be important in providing both the mental health and physical health of the kids, and that the families at this time really, really need that. And I believe the staff, their functioning will probably be, will be even more educationally optimal when they're able to have the kids in front of them physically as much as possible, especially at that age. The weak link in any of this is typically the older populations. And that's not a pejorative comment about, young adults in general. It's just that, when we look at the situation and when I've been a part of the, DPH meetings and hearing what they've had to say, typically they're noting that most of the COVID situations are not coming from within the school. They're typically coming from outside. So somebody goes to a wedding and then they become a close contact of somebody who is ill, or there's some kind of sports tournament that is unaffiliated with the schools that somebody attends, and then that group gets, somebody gets a close contact of a COVID, somebody that's identified as having COVID. So it's typically coming in from the older populations. And that's why in the 6 through 12 zone, keeping that population for now in a partial in-person or hybrid is important, because if they do end up being in a situation where they're a close contact or they have certain symptoms, working in collaboration with the community and the parents and guardians who are reporting such things and watching carefully for it, we're going to be able to quickly mitigate that. If a student starts to feel a little not healthy on a Wednesday, or they do have a situation where someone was COVID identified, having the series of remote days means that there's a much better chance that the population impacted by that, will not be as big and will not be something that impacts the entire school. In a K-5 situation, and say K-2 in particular, if there is an impacted student, whether it's a COVID-like illness or whether it's a COVID identification or close contact, it may impact the kids in that classroom. They would go home in a quarantine for remote learning for 10 to 14 days. It's a much easier containment thing at the pre-K-5 level. But at the high school level, because of all the transitioning, because of the kinds of things that young adults are involved in, that is a much greater chance of shutting the entire high school down if we're not able to get on top of that. So being in a partial in-person hybrid situation gives us a lot more flexibility in terms of reacting to situations as they occur at that level. And in a twist of sort of fate, having it be hybrid and partial in person at this time means that we probably would not have to have the entire high school, say, be out for 14 days. The probability of that is higher if we had everybody in right now, especially given our proximity to UConn and the cross population, the crossing of populations that occurs, being so close to that, to the university, and having common events that I have received information that, Tolland students are involved in. And so, we have to keep a close eye on that for a few more weeks while we're seeing some of the situation at UConn, progress and numbers rise a bit there. I just want to keep an eye on that with respect to that population and be a little bit more cautious about the 6 through 12, because they are the groups that would be most impacted by that. And they're the ones that, if they are impacted, would impact a much broader population from the standpoint of putting that group out. So these are the general considerations and general spacing considerations.
Thank you, Dr. Willett. Let's get some questions for you and go from there. Dana.
Thank you, Dr. Willett. Thank you, Ashley. Dr. Willett, thank you for putting this plan together. I know that it was a lengthy COVID committee meeting that we had last Friday, and I'm very appreciative for all of the administrators and staff that were involved in that to give the input. I know it's a trying time and trying situation. So just thank you for all the time and research and due diligence that you've done to do your best for the entire Tolland community. I do have a few questions. Some will dovetail. Well, the first one just kind of dovetails from what Ashley said, specifically about Birch Grove and TIS. I guess my question would be, how would the children's day change? I mean, if we can give an example, for instance, partial in person, now we're having students go all in, going 4 days. That increases the population in the school and building. I know that you say that we are going to be following the guidelines, but even I do recall in the very beginning of all of our meetings that, saying that 3-foot social distancing was going to be probably where we were at versus the 6. I guess, how does it look like for now? We're increasing the population in the schools, in those two, it's at least. How does that look for the student and the teacher, or the students and the teachers at lunch, in class, like spacing issues? Right now, if I recall, like TIS and Birch Grove, they're doing sharing of desks. So student A has a desk that they sit at, and they have a storage desk, and then student B uses that the next 2 days when they're in their situation. So now, in theory, both those desks will be utilized Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. How are we going to sustain that spacing and that capacity?
Directly to the desk question, we'll probably have to use lockers. So we'll have to probably look at answering it right now while they're evolving their look at the whole thing. At TIS specifically, they may just have to do a combination of certain spaces where kids can store items and also reintegrate lockers into the situation, but do it carefully so that we're taking into consideration spacing and when the kids access the lockers and things like that. But that's the most direct answer I can give to that, is that at this time, as of say 22 on the 23rd here, that's what we're looking at, and we will also be looking at other alternatives as well. Keeping in mind just that part of the reasoning for where people are in the state and why the Harvard Global Health Institute talks about it the way they do, and how the certain organizations are talking about it. The early research on this talks a lot about, at this age level, the kids are not getting as much transmission, and even in some cases not transmitting as much. In some of the studies that they show, they're not getting it in much frequency, and they're not transmitting it in as much frequency or in a way that older groups are. So part of it is, by increasing the number of kids in a classroom, we're not dramatically increasing risk because of the dynamics of the research around this. That at that age group, it's not necessarily that other first grader who's the biggest threat. At this time, the bigger situation that we would want to avoid would be, for instance, I would not bring high school kids in to tutor first graders.
Right.
Like programs that brought high school kids in direct interaction with pre-K2 populations, for instance, that I would not be doing right now, because, where we're seeing the prevalence start to rise and where we're seeing those contacts occur is mostly in those older kids. So it's not the other first grader that is a big threat, so to speak. We can put more first graders in a space and not increase the risk that much. It has more to do with, the who, not exactly the how many. And so, if the who is the high school kid, that is a higher chance of creating a problem in that situation. But if the who is another first grader, based on the data of prevalence, the Chicago study, Massachusetts information, South Korea's information, stuff that came out of Italy, there's a lot of information to suggest that it's really not that other first grader who's going to be the problem. So in some of the spacing, if we work with the lockers carefully and we're working with the spacing in the classrooms, we will, and in the cafeterias, we'll be spreading out those waves over the other areas of the building using other spaces. And as we start to look at it, we'll look at schedules too, especially when we revisit 6 through 12. I'll be talking about that more in the next few weeks, looking at how that might be modified a bit. But for the pre-K-5, we'll be looking very carefully at, what other spaces we can use, whether those spaces are storage spaces like lockers, or for cafeteria and lunch times, whether those spaces are other rooms in the building. We'll be looking to expand into those areas so that we can provide, that additional maximal social distance to the greatest extent possible.
Okay. So I guess it would be fair to say, like, TIS has the lockers that can be utilized, but Birch Grove doesn't. So we'd have to be creative and use some alternative resources to do that. I guess, so we can explain to our K through 5-year-olds what their day in, day out reality is going to look like. I guess, what is their shield and mask use going to look like now in comparison to what they've been doing in PIP? What does recess look like? I know in some of the other schools, some kids have recess, they have recesses really early. Some kids have lunch waves at 9:45 a.m. And I guess my other question would be for indoor versus outdoor recess when you have rain or inclement weather, or when it starts to get chilly. We've had the benefit of having warm weather and the luxury of getting that our new playground in use. So there's the second playground available at Birch Grove. But I think that parents want to know so they can make the right decision for if going remote or going 4-day in person is for them, is they need to prepare their student on what the increased requirements will be. And in addition to that, like lunch. So depending on what school, it's 2 to 5 kids spacing per table per wave. Obviously that will increase. So is lunch going to be a quiet lunch and have no opportunity for social interaction? Or are they going to have lunches in their classroom and be a quiet lunch?
Yeah,
I guess I'll stop there for that one.
No, they're great questions, and I think we're going to be using special area rooms, where rather than having certain special rooms for specialists, those rooms will be instead used, and specialists will push in maybe, and the rooms that had been, rooms like library and other rooms will be reallocated and used in ways that will allow the kids to spread out a little bit more, particularly for, eating in a cafeteria. Lunch will probably be about 3 kids per table still. Keeping in mind that the reason why the state of Connecticut and the state of Connecticut's Department of Public Health and so on are not putting prohibitions on this is that the vast majority of illness right now will be COVID-like illness, meaning it would look like the flu or the stomach flu or a cold or allergies, but the vast majority will not be COVID. So, the kids that are, coming together, there are very few people right now in our area that are infected with this. And therefore, most of the kids are not in danger of that situation. And when there is potentially one that comes up, we are so far, we are way ahead of where we were in March, April, May when this first hit us. We have lots of scaffolding and meetings and processes set up to intercept that situation and to address it. And so there's the layers of, of the parent guardian layer. We're all in this together. So as, part of the Willett family's, morning rituals, we're making sure that the Willett kids are feeling well and don't have a fever. And I trust Tolland parents. I trust the Tolland parents and guardians that they're doing the same things. And that's layer 1. Layer 2 is everybody watching in the school system. Layer 3 is the PPE. So even if a child does somehow go through all those layers and still sneezes, they have the PPE on, staff has the PPE on, it's noticed, they're isolated in the nurse, and typically then they're quarantined until they can get a diagnosis of an alternative diagnosis or a PCR test, which would, say that there was no COVID. And if there was, then we would proceed from there. But, the prevalence of it is so low, children are safe. What's happening right now is the families are struggling. There's all kinds of situations going on. There's far more reports of things happening in families that are unfortunate and sad, And over the period of, the last month, while we've built our capacity to handle the situation, families are being strained to their core. And, the place that helps the families most is getting these kids in and together. And when they're in and together, we are going to have things that we have to adjust to. Kids will have to be spread out in different areas. We might have, where possible, we would have lunches outdoors. At the high school level and then 6th grade through 12th grade level in the future, I might be looking at a more grab and go methodology depending on what we do. But we can make structural changes to bring people into a better sense of comfort and to maximize our ability to respond and to keep people socially distant. But, we are in a place where we can make these kinds of modifications, maintain a level of safety that I think is acceptable, and provide that the students with the option, the ability to be, in school where they can get the services that they need directly. So, right now, in the beginning, I couldn't necessarily say this, but I can right now that, that given all of the considerations, getting the kids in 4 days, having that middle Wednesday day as a remote learning day where we're doing that cleaning and giving a chance, for, any kind of bacteria or virus to die and to be killed. We are really continuing to approach this in a very conservative and safe manner. And at the same time, getting kids in and, getting the services that they need. That is something that was being traded off before so that we could make sure that we were going to be able to do this in a very safe way. And now we have those habits set up. We have those processes that are that are underway and that can be adapted. And so we've transitioned to a point where really the best place for them to be is in school. And that's a very personal decision on every family's, that every family has to decide, and I respect that. But I want, having the pre-K 5 kids in school right now, 4 days a week, that really is the best place for them. And, and a family can decide whether that's true. I mean, it might not be best for everyone, but for the majority of families and kids, it is. So, that being available to them, even if we have to tweak those lunches, even if there are some certain things that we're going to have to do with lockers, those are trade-offs that will not compromise safety, in any noticeable manner, and will allow us to provide them with the services. So these are things we will be able to adjust to. And they will not be seamless. Maybe certain locker things we'll find out have to happen in a different way, but there are trade-offs that will, that's worth making for the benefit of having the kids there.
Okay. So it's fair to say that they're pretty much going to following the same protocol that they've been doing in partial or person at this point.
And recess, things like that will be in cohorts. They'll still be in those kinds of manageable cohorts.
Okay. 2 more quick questions and I'll move on. Sorry. Kindergarten, is that staying AM, PM, or are they going 4 days full day?
Kindergarten is under the same plan, so it'll be 4 days. 4 days, all students, all in, unless they choose the temporary remote option.
But they'll be doing 4 days AM or 4 days PM.
It'll be there will be no more AM, PM. It's those AM and PM groups are going to be back to being a kindergarten class.
Okay, so kindergarten as per usual. Perfect. And my last question would be about Chromebooks use. Just like I asked about the desks, some of the Chromebooks in the older grades, grade 6, some of the grades are being shared, TIS. How are we going to be doing that when we have more students in the building with those shared Chromebooks?
So to some extent, what we've done in the 6 through 12 grades is, where families have had Chromebooks that were district issued, we've required that those be brought in with those students. And we didn't do that at TIS, but we would extend that to TIS. So we would be reacquiring the kids that had them, would continue to use them, but would be bringing them in. And we do have carts at TIS that we've been using, we would continue to utilize. We do expect to receive the shipment from the state in October, which is a fulfillment of the grant. So we're hoping that, that timeline will align with what we're doing and that we will be able to handle it. But, Tolland teachers are used to working with, with what they have. And in terms of technology and Chromebooks, we have been working on the one-to-one initiative, but they've adapted their instruction, to be able to manage it, and they'll continue to do so. I know that they are highly, highly capable and amazing professionals. And I know that, getting the kids in front of them, that I know from their perspective, even that I think they would want to have those kids in front of them, even if it meant that they had to adapt instruction, for fewer Chromebooks available for the time being. I think they would see that as a reasonable trade-off too. So, we need to get those because they're absolutely vital. And especially as we get later into the fall and winter, when we may have to consider other options, they're really, really vitally important to be in place. But for the period of this, this evaluation period, this second period of 9, from October 5th to October 30th, we'll be able to manage with what we have.
All right. Well, and then hopefully with, our grant and the generous donation from TEPTO, writing those big checks for some additional Chromebooks, well, we're not too late to the game to get some more Chromebooks in for the remainder of the Tolland Public School students.
And it's
I'm looking
not
forward
much
to those
better, but I
arriving.
think our first wave at BGP for lunch is 10:30, but understandably, it's still pretty early. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Willett. Thank you, Ashley.
Okay, thank you, Dana. Let's go to Jacob next.
Okay, so thank you, Dr. Willett, for putting together this nice schematic here to look at this in more detail. Right now, our faces are covering part of it, so I'll have to look at it on my own. But just again, thank you for all the hard work that you and all the staff have been putting into creating this packet with all the new information for this next period. Overall, I think this is the right decision. I'm really glad to see that pre-K through 5 will be in person for the next period. For a lot of parents have been expressing a lot of concern about childcare and the mental health aspect and just the difficulties of having young children do some hybrid learning. So I think this is a move in the right direction. And also the information that you've given us tonight about case counts is good information. It's good to see that we're still in a good spot. And I hope that if this continues and maybe we can bring some of the older kids back for the next period as well. That's there's some other complicating factors to that, but I would really hope to see that eventually we get 6 to 12 back in schools. And again, I think you've laid out here that there's a lot of pieces, moving pieces that go up into making this decision. Another thing I just wanted to highlight that makes me confident to support this decision is I have an email here from someone from the Eastern Highland Health District about how they have 200 to 300 contact tracers from the state that have been established as a team to help look for COVID hotspots. Information like that makes me more supportive to move more people up into a 4-day-a-week schedule. And I think that's about it. But again, this is good news, and thank you for all the hard work that you put into it.
Okay, thank you, Jacob. Let's go to Plord.
Thanks, Ashley. First of all, thank you, Dr. Willett, for everything. I love the rubric you made. I think this really, puts things into perspective of everything you look at and not just the state thresholds indicators, the primary and secondary. So I really appreciate that. And I really appreciated being on the meeting last week with the administrators and the TEA to hear their perspective, what their challenges were, what was working well. So I can really appreciate them giving me a different perspective on some things. I didn't feel like I should be an advisor there. I felt like I should just listen and learn. So thank you for everything. Just wrote down a few things. thinking back, I really do appreciate the hybrid start. It may not have seemed like that at the time because I really wanted our kids full in person. But I could see the method to the madness. I think it'll help both the staff, the parents, and the kids bounce in and out of this model if needed. So it was a very good place to start. Lastly, I just want to advocate, and you don't have to answer this now. I just love to advocate for, and I'm happy to hear you say it, that you're using unconventional spaces to help with the spacing. I said this on the committee meeting last week. I drive around the state and I've seen lots of tents up. So if I need to, I'd love to hear that FFC is approving, tents and wedding tents or whatever you need to get extra space. I'd like to advocate for that. And I really would like to advocate. I know there's different challenges with the 6 to 12. And I know that you couldn't move there right now. But I am concerned for the mental health of our students in this population. Not just the fundamentals. One could say they have the fundamentals and they could do the on-screen learning. But sometimes I think even all of us probably feel zoomed out, and it's good to, it feels good to be in person with people. So I'd love to, know the plan, and we don't have to know it now, but know the plan for getting our 6 to 12 kids back in school as well. So thank you.
So I can give you a little bit of that. I mean, and generally what I want to make sure I do is try to give the best picture I can with the information that I have, and knowing that will change. Things do change, but, and always give both sides of the coin, because the credibility is always being in giving both sides of the coin, So to kind of address two things, contact tracing and the high school and tents and plans. To address tents, we have looked at it facilities wise, and they just don't really look tenable for us here. In terms of how to, would we run electricity to them? Would we heat them? Certain requirements that we would need to have for the tents to work, where they would go, and the space that we have, and the wind, and things in Tolland. So the tents didn't really look like a viable option for us, but we are keeping our minds open and trying to figure out the best way we can. Kids in high school, the young adults now, what's great about the hybrid and partial in-person is they do have that physical in-person presence for a couple of days, which helps us, especially as we keep a close watch on the intermingling of these populations and, look at what happens over the next month. I think we'll be able to make sure we get through a period of time where there's some spikes in these intermingling populations, and make sure that they don't come back and affect us or affect that group, so that we end up actually, ironically, being completely out. Right now, they have, a couple of days together in person. If we ended up getting a couple of infections in the wrong places there during this particular time, that entire school would be out. There would be absolutely no partial in-person interaction at all. So we're just watching that really, really carefully and trying to, make sure that we're not creating any problems. What will probably happen at the middle and high school level, and where we're headed, is we may do something more like grab and go lunches at some point. If we are going to move and get that moved to an all-in scenario, we might cut out those lunch waves, because those lunch waves are at the high school level, even middle school level, some of the bigger, they're bigger kids, bigger bodies, and, those situations are a little bit, that's where some of those situations can get tight, so to speak. So we might actually cut out lunch waves and go with grab and go lunches. So kids would still have access to the food and the lunch. It just would not happen in a wave. The days would end a little earlier. The kids would grab their lunches and go. So that's one of the things we're looking at for not this particular period because of the logistics and some of the other dynamics that are involved, but potentially for the next education, option period, that may be where we go. Finally, I have noticed that, and it's been very, very good to see over the span of the month that, the contact tracing, capacities have increased. The state has dedicated resources to this, which is really, really good to see. And the school system, Tolland school system, has put in place something that you're really working hard to maintain, and we're keeping on top of in cooperation with the families in Tolland. We're only as strong as our weakest link. So the families and community members in Tolland reporting the COVID, the COVID symptoms to the COVID line and doing the COVID forms, that is so vitally important. They're doing a great job of that. So even outside of contact tracing, we have layers that are, catching things and putting quarantine situations in effect that are really helping protect the school system and the children. So that is a capacity that has been built over the last month that, we are really working very hard on and maintaining, and it's a great asset to the school district. And we have a great director of nursing, a great nursing staff, and we have a great group of people dedicated to this. I will put in a plug. I think the state of Connecticut still has not reached the National Association for City County Health Officials, or NACHO, has a standard for contact tracing that the state of Connecticut has not reached yet. So I'm putting in a plug for the state of Connecticut to keep reaching for that. They still don't have as many contact tracers across the state as that organization, which is a standards organization, suggests that they should. But they've made major progress, and and I feel confident that we would be able to jump on top of a situation now. And I can't say that I had that same confidence before, but I do think we have it. We've developed that capacity both locally, and I see things in the state are changing. So I think we are in a very, very good place to move in the direction of getting kids back in school as much as we possibly can, while making sure we don't tip the scales over to the other side and end up with entire school quarantines. That's what I want to avoid. And I think we've got a good balance right now.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Will, and thank you, Plord. Let's go to Karen.
Thank you, Ashley. Dr. Willett, just a couple quick things I think are related to what we're talking about. My concern is with staff workload. And I think it would be good for this board to focus on things like SBAC testing and teacher evaluations. And why don't we, let's take these things off their backs so they can get back to focusing just on teaching. I think that those things loom over their heads, and with the state of Connecticut, I think that we should be a united front for our staff in telling them to forgo those this year. Also, as we talk about, or you mentioned things like community and parent responsibility and looking out for each other so this is successful. You mentioned UConn, and there's students going to UConn to visit friends, things like that. There's students coming home from college who probably still have siblings in the school system. I think that's part of it, and there's no guarantee to know what they're doing, but are they abiding by protocols and testing and quarantining? Who knows? But I think that that's part of when we talk about, the community doing its part to make sure that we are all staying safe and taking care of each other. So, not sure those were really questions, more like statements, but if you want to give some feedback on that.
Sure. From the standpoint of evaluation and teacher evaluation, the state of Connecticut has provided a alternative option for this year. And so I've met with the Professional Development Evaluation Committee, which is a statutorily required committee that every school system needs to have. It has representatives of the teachers and the administrators as a part, and relates directly to PD and evaluation as the state requires. So the state does require evaluation to be a certain way, and they have provided an alternative process. And I believe PDEC will, again, this Professional Development Evaluation Committee, will be taking that up tomorrow and probably moving forward to adopt that, which then I would tell the state by October 1st we had done the alternative. And I think the alternative will be found by most teachers to be a little less stressful. Having said that, and that's the state provided alternative. So as far as standardized testing, I'll go out on a limb and I'll say I couldn't agree more. I mean, I think at this time, we need to do progress monitoring. We need to be focusing on our assessments, our benchmarks, working very closely, using Spire and other things for students that are in special populations, using the Dibbles, the Dorf, the DAYS, all of these diagnostic ones we can use for progress monitoring. Those are the most important for student growth. The one-off, one-shot sort of aspects, they're really not mission critical for student growth. The state is moving in the direction of adapting and changing that, which I'm pleased to see, to make it more progress monitoring oriented. But in its standard form, offering an SBAC during a pandemic, I'm going to say I deeply respect where the state is and that they want to, make sure they're showing data and they're showing, the divide in education between those who have wealth and those who do not, those who have resources and those who do not. I would suggest respectfully that we already know that, and that during this year, let the teachers focus on teaching, and just don't have us give the SBAC this year. But that's my feeling on it. Certainly, if the board felt strongly about that, I'm sure that that a letter to the state on that one would be something that they would probably find useful. And I do think that a very strong argument can be made that we don't need kids taking 4 days of testing right now when we're just trying to get kids back in school, getting the reading assessments and the Dibbles and the things that actually help them, the helping kids with SRBIRTI, inclusion, intervention. These are the things that really we need to spend the time on, not on a 4 day kind of 4 day exercise to give the data that is generally going to be, provide information about what we kind of already know is going on. So I would say that's a good idea, but that's up to the board.
Well, I'm all for that. And then I just another quick question about paras as we move to the 4 day for K through 5. Do you know like how many openings we still have, or are you still kind of working on that?
No, I mean, when I looked the other day, like I said, it was about 20, and some of that, when we transition into a year, you might have 6 or 7 that they're in a transition period. So we probably have another 13 affected by COVID. But again, we're in the same situation that many other districts are with that. We are entering negotiations with the paraprofessional union. That is part of the regular process. It reoccurs about every 2-3 years. And, that is going to be playing out this year, as the negotiation committee knows. So, I know that we've all seen emails that talk to how valuable paras are and compensation, and that compensation is set as part of the negotiations process and as part of the para contract. So, those kinds of things will be addressed through those processes, and those processes, they play out as they play out. As far as the staffing, people are making personal decisions, and I respect that. And we're responding by doing what we need to do to fill those vacancies, and the district is doing that. So, highly valuable group of people, very, integral part of the team. There's a process set up for establishing what the contract is for paras, and we're working on that. And, in terms of staffing, we are moving in that direction. We have, like I said, brought in, 8 or 9 now that we're bringing in. The temp agency is offering 8 or 9 temp employees. I think that we'll be able to take care of it, but at the same time, we need the paras. America needs the paras. Tolland needs the paras. America needs the teachers. Tolland needs the teachers. There's no greater time maybe in history where we've needed them more. And, this is a 100-year kind of thing. The last one being a century ago. We haven't faced a situation like this for a century in this country. And, we need you. We need you paras. We need you, teachers. We need all of you. So, we're working, and I think everybody knows the importance of the work that we're doing, and they're showing up, they're doing the work, and I am every day thankful for that. I know that it is a nerve-wracking time, but we are in a good place in Tolland. I would not do this, and I think people know that I don't succumb to pressure. I do what I think is in the best interest of children. And, these options and this way forward, this is in the best interest of children. We do have, certain situations that families I respect and need to deal with, and they make their personal decision about that. It may not be for every single child based on their family's needs and their considerations, but in the broad sense, in the aggregate sense, this is the right thing to do. And so we're going to be, moving forward, and the paras, I appreciate them being part of that effort.
Paras are a sensitive subject right now, but as someone who has served on the negotiating committee for my whole time on the board, which is now almost 7 years, I will say that, it's something that we've struggled with as a district. And I think that paras are oftentimes can be the difference between a classroom that is calm and being run efficiently, sometimes because they're in there and they're doing a job that's not always something that not everyone can do. So they are very much appreciated. And I know that our human resources person is probably working very, very hard trying to bring in more staff. So yeah, I appreciate them. And I know that you do too, Dr. Willett. And
I do.
It's very difficult, and it's not an easy job.
Well, and, I'm getting the text, and some messages that come up, and I do check to make sure nobody's getting locked out. And, this is a tough time, and people are pulling together to make it work for children. And the paras are doing an amazing job of that. And, the teachers, the custodians, the ABISs, the BISs, or, behavior intervention specialists, the BCBAs, the secretaries, the administrators, they all are vital to this. We cannot serve the children without educators. And we need you. It's not a pretty time. It's not a comforting time, but we need you. So outside of the hyperbole and things that sometimes happen on social media, I care very deeply for every single person who goes to the school system and who works in the school system. We're not going to put people in harm's way. We're going to do everything we can to move this forward. And everyone in this field right now is doing a service to this country and a service to this community. And I thank every one of you for it. And those who cannot, who feel like they need to leave the career at this time, I respect that. And the state has FFCRA and has many other, provisions to allow people to be able to address the issues. And we will, obviously honor those. But showing up for work every day now is showing up for children. It's showing up for America. It's showing up for the community. And I'm more thankful for the people that work in this district than I have ever been for anything else in my life right now. They're doing an amazing job.
Agreed. I'm all set. Thank you.
There's definitely a lot of good points that were brought up. Even like that letter for the SBAC testing, that would definitely be something that we should talk as a board. However, we do have a lot of stuff going on tonight. So at some point, I don't know if maybe communications should take over that and draft a letter or we do it within the boardroom, but we can get everyone's temperatures on that too when we go forward.
Done in the past, Ashley is kind of had Dr. Willett help us steer the letter with some proper language, and then but I can steer that through communications.
Okay. Yeah, we can get everyone's board members how they feel about it. I know that's definitely something that I would be looking forward to speaking about. Let's go to Rini.
Hi, I'm looking at the clock and I see it's getting late already, so I'm going to be quick because most of my points have already been made. But I would like to say that I'm really proud of the staff and the administration and everyone for putting together what we've been able to do so far. And, again, I wasn't, wholly behind initially the hybrid. I did see the reasoning for it, and I'm thrilled that the K-5 is going to be able to go in the 4 days a week. I'm hopeful for the rest of the grades. I do, understand and appreciate, Dr. Willett, your reasonings around that. I do think they have needs as well. And, to your point, they're getting it a couple days a week, but I think, the more we can do, the better. And I see that you're looking at, so many different data points and stuff, and I really, respect that. So I just wanted to give my, backing to all the teachers and the administrators again, and that type of thing to around all the work that they've done and, making this work and, the constant change that, they're going through to make the next phase work. And, I just think there's got to be some kudos there for everyone. And I think that's it for me for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Rini. Let's go to Tony.
Yeah, I just wanted to take a quick moment. I think my favorite thing with the reopening plan that was put together before was, this evaluation period that happened every few weeks where we, Dr. Willett, the staff take a moment to take the temperature of all of these stakeholders and points of information that are showing on this board. And I think that the fact that we were able to move forward with the K-5 and do so from a very logical and poignant perspective shows that this process works, that it has merit. I'm really looking forward to seeing that next evaluation and the one after that, and how we open up safely and from this perspective. So, good job to everybody involved in getting to this point and in what had to be a very stressful series of meetings and analytics.
Okay. Thank you very much, Tony. So at this point, Dr. Willett, everyone has definitely given you some stuff to think about and go through.
Ashley, I'm sorry, I popped my hand back up, but it's just a quick one, but if you want to go forward, I can.
Yeah, I was going to go forward. It's already 9 o'clock and we only hit topic 1.
Okay.
But
Dr. Willett, I'll bring it up in tomorrow's meeting.
Okay. I'm sure there's going to be even more questions coming in, Dr. Willett, as well for you, because I know that there's definitely probably even more that we didn't dive into tonight. But like I said, seeing that we still have, another 4 items along with the Fields and Grounds Agreement, and it's already 9 o'clock, I would like to try to move to H2, the BOE board setting for September 30th.
Absolutely. So if I'm going to try to somehow, I want to put up the agenda item here. So okay, well, that's not working. So I'm just going to talk to it. I think most of you have it in front of you. The agenda item H2 speaks to the Board of Ed goal setting. And right now we, as you know, we're looking for a date and have settled on September 30th at 7 p.m. The goal is to have it at the Tolland Public High School Library, provided that there are no issues with having it there, which I do not imagine there will be at this point. But, if there are, I would communicate to everybody what the alternative would be. We're going to have it in the library in person on September 30th. Those who cannot attend in person, I will have set up the arrangements so that you can attend virtually. And the library only has a certain capacity, especially under our COVID regulations. So people will be able to attend the meeting virtually and pose questions in a similar manner as they do now. So public participation can happen both in person and digitally. And so we will be running a dual meeting of both in person and digitally attending individuals. So that'll happen September 30th, and there'll be some air traffic control aspects to that, but we're going to get it done. Nick Caruso is going to be there. Right now, the plan is to have Nick attend in person. Depending on the situation, he might have to attend virtually, but right now he intends to attend in person. This would be the last of 3 in the session, and the goal would be at the end of this meeting to develop some Board of Ed goals. We will continue with the Portrait of a Graduate work, so I will be working to help make sure that everything is in alignment, but this would allow you to get your goals done, and I believe it is in the board's intention and desire to get the goals established, on the earlier side of things rather than waiting till after, say, Portrait of a Graduate is complete.
Okay, perfect. At this time, do any board members have any questions in regards to the September 20th date for the goal setting? Rini, your hand is up.
I just wanted to ask, I thought I saw that the agenda actually says 7:30, but this sheet says 7. So I just wanted to confirm the time.
Well, I think right now, if you see a publicly posted agenda, then we're probably going to have to go with that. 7 o'clock was what I thought it was. So I know that I'll be there at 7 and probably 6. So if you show up a little early,
well, I think it would be better if we could do it at 7 because it gives us a little bit more time. I don't know if there's a way to just adjust the agenda. And again, I could be wrong, but I thought I looked at it just before and I thought it said 7:30. So that's what I was looking.
I'll check the agenda. I think we could probably, I'll have to check. I will have to check.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I will do that.
Any other board members have any questions at this time? Okay, so Dr. Willett, if you could confirm that, Rini, the 7 o'clock would be a better starting time, but
It says 7:30. Ashley, it's Dana. I have it up on my screen. It says 7:30. I don't know if you guys want to make a motion to adjust it and pick a time now.
Well, okay. Yeah, I have to check to make sure that we can do that. I need to make sure we can do that. And if we can, I don't think you have to, you just tell me now that you want me to try. I don't know if you have to do a motion for that, but I have to make sure that we are allowed to do that.
Did you schedule Nick at 7 or 7:30?
Nick is coming at 7, but I don't think he's going to have a problem.
Okay.
Being there a little early.
I just want to make sure that we're not putting it at a time when the presenter is not going to be there. So
yeah, no, he'll be there. And if we had to start at 7:30 and I can't get that agenda changed, I'll just email him to come at 7:30. But right now, I'll just check to see if we can change it. If the board would like it changed to 7, I'll make sure that we change it. I thought it was 7. So
well, thank you guys for catching that because that would have been something that we would have members at 7 and 7:30. So thank you. Okay, let's jump to H3, the capital budget request.
Oh, good. I got the sharing to work. Here we go. All right, so H3, capital budget request. As you are familiar, and most of you or many of you that have seen the process play out before last year, typically the capital budget is due to the town around the first, second week in October. So this year, the date is October 8th. I have reached out to Mike Rosen and asked him if we could do that on October 14th, mainly because we're not going to get another chance to approach this as a board unless you did a special session, unless we are allowed to give it to the town on October 15th. So at this point, this is a preliminary conversation about capital budget and some of the things that are typically part of it, and pointing you to where the plan is, because the 5-year plan changes, but there are many things on that plan that are still part of the plan, because it is 5 years each time. So what I'm going to present to you today is a basic overview, but on the 14th, I'll be able to provide you detailed information about the projects that that we would be including. So right now, to give you a little bit of an update from when the Board of Ed document was published on Friday, we have had some meetings subsequent to that time, and I see about 14 possible projects that could be added. So we're in the process of looking at that, and by October 14th, I'll provide updated information and give the board a heads up on what those 6 to 14 projects could be. So right now, just as an overview and a reminder, this does happen around this time in October every year. The what's included is the typical spreadsheet that we use to illustrate the years, color-coded. You'll notice that the color coding is that yellow represents capital requests. The brown represents town council allocation that was part of a transfer from the Board of Ed to the town for capital projects, and the town put it in a capital project account. The green represents projects that were bonded for, and the purple is for when opportunity arises items, meaning they aren't officially part of the 5-year plan, but if some grant or money became available, these would be things that we would pursue. And at some point, they may have to be moved in, but they are currently, out in the when opportunity arises section. So this document gets updated. And if you go online to the superintendent's page on the left side, there is a link for capital budgets. It includes the information about the 5-year plan for capital. It also includes, thanks to Peter Staba, who is amazing facilities director, it includes a disaggregation of just about every project that has been on that list. So you can get a sense of what it looks like when a project is spec'd out. You'll see the things that are in the current 5-year plan, and you'll see things that have been completed. And so that's a wealth of information. And when I provide the October 14th update to the board that has the specific projects that are being added to the 5-year plan or requests, I will also include those items on the website so that the public can also jump in and see what those 6 to potentially 14 items are. So that's essentially where we're at in terms of capital right now. And we're developing that list as we speak.
At this time, does any board members have any questions in terms of what is on here? I will go through. Jacob, you have your hand up.
Yeah. So it's a little hard since we don't actually have, the response or the request that we're going to be reviewing. But since we're on a tight deadline, I was just curious, will we be provided with not just like a list of things, but kind of a description about what some of these things are? And some of it's kind of fairly straightforward, but for something like music and art lab upgrade or classroom tech upgrades, there could be, it's a fairly vague term. I'm just kind of wondering if we'll be provided a bit more of a description about what that entails precisely.
So in very, very detailed breakdown of the projects is on the website. Some of the when opportunity arises projects may not be there because they just haven't risen to the priority level to make them part of the official documentation. But if you are those who are able to get to the district site and take a look on the left menu at the capital improvement plan, and I'm going to try to put that up on the screen really quick if I can just get the sharing to cooperate with me. I'm having a little bit of trouble with that today, but here we go. Share screen. So this site does have, if you scroll down on it, most of the items that are in the plan, and we will update this for the 14th, are also listed on this page. So to get a breakdown, for instance, of the THS security burglar panel, it gives exactly where in the plan it falls. It gives a project description, a project need description, and a project budget and funding source allocation description. So it has, all of those items as well as pictures of the actual thing that need to be replaced. So for the vast majority of these, those breakdown sheets exist. I will be adding to the website the ones that are being created right now for those capital projects that will be added. They'll be added to the request.
Okay. Thank you for that. I guess I'll just look into that. Hopefully there are some things up on this list that maybe we can take off the list, like some of the one-to-one grants for the, or because we have some of the grants. But I guess we'll evaluate all that later. Thank you, though.
Of course. Sure.
Okay, any other members at this time have any questions with their blue hand? If not, we will move right along. Okay, Dr. Will, it looks like we can move to the next thing. Oh, the TEPTO donation.
Yes, so it is my great pleasure to announce and humbly announce that, TEPTO has done just an unbelievable kindness to the school district. The Tolland Elementary Parent Teacher Organization generously donated $30,000. That's just incredible. And, these funds will be able to have a direct, meaningful impact and educational benefit for the students. It conforms with policy and regulation 3050. When Jen Galachant had communicated about this, I just almost dropped the phone. I was so amazed by the generosity of this offer. Obviously we thank TEPTO and all of the hardworking TEPTO members. And, it's another example of how this community comes together. Another example of how, parents, guardians, you're taking care of each other. You're taking care of your community and your school. And I just feel fortunate to be able to be working and be part of this community. So thank you to the TEPTO and, deep appreciation. And thanks to Jen Galachant for reaching out and doing that.
No, this is fantastic. This is very helpful, and I'm sure that it will go to good use. So thank you very much. At this time, does any other board members have anything? Rini?
I just wanted to add on my thanks to them for the donation. And one quick question was, a couple of people mentioned that this was going towards Chromebooks or something, but yet this says it's, not restricted. Is there a plan for the money or not at this point?
Yeah, this money will go towards technology and Chromebooks.
Okay.
But there are no, we can't impose, a donation cannot be accepted that imposes restrictions.
Okay, but you do have that plan in mind already for this. So just many thanks to the group and everyone who participated in that. It's great.
I mean, especially we didn't get to have our spring fling this past end of the year. I love that. Let's go to Dana.
Thank you, Ashley. Yeah, the spring fling is the event of the year. So hopefully we'll be able to have one next spring. But yeah, I just wanted to thank all the families that, have generously donated to TEPTO throughout the years and supported our TEPTO program, all of our PTO programs.
this group, the Tolland PTOs and specifically the Tolland Elementary PTOs have done a phenomenal job supporting our teachers and our students and our staffs. Again, I said it last time about, the face masks and or the lanyards for the face masks and the clear face masks for the teachers. I know that a lot of them are using it for the screen time. So when they are speaking to the kids, they can see their teacher's mouths moving, which is fantastic for those who are lip readers and need that. But this is above and beyond generous with the TEPTO. I think they definitely went above and beyond the call of duty. I want to reiterate what Dr. Willett said, that, it's people taking care of people and it's our community taking care of our community. I think it's disheartening that we had to go there with the $30,000 with TEPTO. I think if we properly funded our Chromebooks and the one-to-one program, as Dr. Willett has presented it in previous budgets, we wouldn't necessarily be in this situation. So I just want to make sure that's on top of mind going into budget season next season. But I don't want to go down that path right now. I just want to make sure that we had that stated. And again, for the TEPTO team to come together so quickly and to be so generous and kind to support our students and Dr. Willett, I'm so appreciative. So thank you for your kindness and generosity.
Dr. Willett, do you think we can get you into the dunk tank if we have the spring fling this year? Think you're willing to do it? I'm just putting it out there.
I will neither confirm or deny any intention to go into a dunk tank, but I would be willing to consider such a thing.
There you go. Heard here. Karen?
Yes, just a big thank you to TEPTO. Our PTOs and Booster Club do some amazing things for our schools, funding a lot of cool things at their particular schools. And, I think they're trying to come together and do some collaborative things too. So thank you to TEPTO. Over the years, they've done a lot of things for our students and staff. Kudos to them.
And Plord.
I just also wanted to say thank you.
Okay, at this time, anyone else? Are we good? Okay, well, thank you again for that. And we can move on to the next item, which I don't have my agenda. Here it is. H5, the student technology devices and ERF request.
So as part of the process of evaluating where we are for technology in the district, and you'll notice many other towns are in a similar situation, Stafford and Ellington and others. And, we're all working to try to get ourselves to a certain place as the year progresses. And as you know, we also in the district have been working with teachers, and the middle school is a great example. The Board of Education did a instructional rounds visit to the middle school, virtually, of course. And I think many felt that it was very valuable in learning about how that technology was so crucial and needed in the classroom and in service of general education, even without the COVID pandemic, but certainly exacerbated by the COVID pandemic. So what we've done here is really taken a close look at what it looked like we were going to receive with respect to the grants. We are going to receive more than 800 devices. Another grant that came in that we are receiving is, with Wi-Fi units, and we've been distributing Wi-Fi units to families that have needed them. And so we are aggressively approaching every opportunity that we have, and we are acquiring, and we're very thankful for the grant opportunities that have been put out there. Outside of those grant opportunities, we still would need to have a contribution we would need to draw into the Educational Reserve Fund to be able to complete the process of allocating the appropriate level to technology for students, both to have the benefit of it, as other districts have, but also to get us in a good position for the situation we'll probably be in sometime later in the year. So in evaluating that, we would need to make a request of the Educational Reserve Fund, or at this point, because the Educational Reserve Funds are there and are at the discretion of the board, you have over 400,000 in that fund right now. Another 200,000 or so, as you recall, as part of the end of year plan, has been requested to be transferred to the Educational Reserve Fund. That 200 or so thousand is going to, have to be after the audit in the third quarter of the current fiscal year, which is the process under Ordinance 86, Chapter 8. But that 200,000, is going to be part of what would go into the fund as we progress in the year. You already have about 400,000 in there. So the potential is that we might need to use up to 200 or so thousand to purchase the remaining units needed to sufficiently cover the student technology needs. And so this particular item of the agenda is to give you an idea of the range and what we might need to be requesting out of the ERF. On October 14th, our next meeting, I would be putting in an agenda item that actually made the official request of the board to move forward with an allocation from the ERF for the allocation of these devices. So this is a first sort of read of the situation, which will be updated on October 14th with a better sense of what we have actually received in terms of the grants. I'm hoping that we get the maximum, and if we do, we're still looking at an expenditure of somewhere in the $140,000 to possibly $200,000 range. So ERF would be a request of around that amount. And I just wanted people to have a sense of that.
Okay, at this time, we'll go to board members for questions. Plord?
Sorry, I didn't mean to have my hand up.
Okay. Tony?
Yeah, I just want to put a clarification here. Dr. Willett, so this agenda item today is informational. And this, just for make sure I'm understanding, this brings us up to the level of technology that we're required to have one for every student?
This would give us, particularly grades 3 through 12, what we need for each student, and it would also allow us to serve PK2 through other devices. So we would be in a place where we could provide the appropriate level of technology for every student. This would help us in respect to the kind of education that the Board of Ed was able to observe when they did the instructional rounds at Tolland Middle School. So it has this value regardless of the COVID situation, but it is even more important given where things will have a high probability of potentially going later in the winter and later in the fall. So this is to set the stage for the request on October 14th of the board to approve this, this amount or an amount to be used for the purchase of this technology through the allocation from the Educational Reserve Fund. And so, yeah, it's basically your almost first read of this, and it'll be updated for the 14th with the final number.
That makes sense to me. Could we then see, in addition, what the future year maintenance and upkeep requirements would be from a fiscal perspective?
Definitely. It also, it can be whether a district wants to do, a certain replacement cycle versus a broader replacement cycle will affect the cost of it. So I'll show you the alternatives. For instance, did you want to go on a 3-year or a 5-year or a 7-year? And that has different dollar signs associated with it. But I definitely can make that and plan to make that part of the information provided.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, sir. I mean, just personally speaking, I certainly see the benefit, and I'm excited to see us, leaning this direction. I just want to make sure that we position ourselves correctly to be able to maintain those benefits.
Okay, thank you, Tony. Let's go to Griffin.
Thank you, Ashley. Thank you, Dr. Willett. So I know we've talked at this in length at FFC. So, we've been talking about this for months, that we've had the ERF as kind of our emergency, tech fund, if you will. So I'm actually in full support of using this money. Like I said, since, we've always known that it was available for technology, and we were kind of waiting to see what exactly our Chromebook needs are. So I just wanted to say that, like I said, we've discussed this extensively in FFC. So I'm glad to see that we will be, making sure that we have the technology devices needed for our students. And I think using this ERF, as we've been discussing for a while now, is the way to go. So thank you for taking care of, getting all those grants too. So it's actually nice to not have to kind of wipe out this entire account, if you will. But it's great that we'll have enough with the state grants to get these devices into our students' hands. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Griffin. Let's go to Jacob.
Okay. So again, like Christine said, we've discussed this a lot up in FFC, and I think it makes total sense to use the ERF up in this way, given the circumstances. It's not really a complicated decision at this point. I guess, my concern, which is something Tony kind of touched on, is, how do we go forward with replacement costs in the future where we're not getting all these grants? And maybe this is something that we can discuss more on Wednesday. I'll just throw it out there. I think it might be good for the board to consider having a goal about how to provide for technology needs going forward up in the future. I think it's something that we're going to need to discuss. But that's beyond the scope of what we're here to do tonight. But I just wanted to put that out there.
Okay, thank you, Jacob. Anyone else at this time? If not, we will move on ahead. Okay.
I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay. We have arrived at the most exciting moment in the entire meeting. Everyone has been looking forward to this moment. The Field and Grounds Agreement that I'm sure everybody is thoroughly...
Dr. Willett, we moved that to K1.
Oh, that's right.
Remember, for the board action, because you had it on K1.
I'm so eager. See, I'm so excited about it.
So excited, and I'm sure we're going to have quite the discussion. Let's go to the committee and liaison reports. So I definitely know FFC met. So Griffin, if you would like to.
Certainly. So yes, FFC met last Wednesday. So we went over kind of where we stood on our COVID-related expenses. I think we were roughly about $105,000 so far. The plan is to use that from our COVID emergency fund pending town council approval, which will be a little bit later because our audit has to happen first. We again talked about the education reserve fund. So Dr. Willett has already kind of talked about that, but we had covered pulling the money out of that fund for the remaining devices that we need. And we actually also went over the capital request. So we kind of already did that tonight too. And I won't steal Dr. Willett's thunder. I will wait until we get to the facility agreement because we talked about that as well. But I won't say anything about what we talked about just yet. So that's it for us. Thanks.
Thank you. Was there anyone else that had a committee or a liaison report at this time? Tony has his hand up.
Policy committee met today, just slightly before this. I think we had a pretty good discussion, and we'll be bringing a couple of items to the leadership committee for potential future agendas. We talked about policy 9130, which has time and meeting location. We talked about 5140, which is the student use of district technology resources. And then we spent a decent amount of time talking about CABE versus Shipman and Goodwin recommendations for policies that should be in place or may need to be in place to help take care of some of the COVID directions that we're getting. We talked to that mostly from a conceptual perspective, and are going to come back with some ideas and recommendations, for Dr. Willett to kind of bounce around through committees and some of the legal things to make sure that we're, from a policy perspective, we're providing cover fire without getting too deep into the weeds that it limits his ability to respond. And so you're not going, the general board isn't going to see anything come out of that committee directly on that in the relatively near future, but I think we're doing some good conversations and kind of aligning ourselves for future efforts. Dr. Willett, Chris, did I kind of hit the high points there?
Good.
You even got smiles, Tony, so.
Smiles are good. All right. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you, Tony. Anyone else at this time? I believe we had everything else happen at the beginning of the month, so. Dana?
Hi, yes, we actually had Birch Grove Committee on the 15th.
Oh.
So everything is on target, on schedule. The playground is in full use at Birch Grove, so that's exciting stuff, and it's a fourth area for the youngest students to play. But the cool thing that I wanted to bring up and highlight from the meeting was there's going to be a mock-up room created. So basically it's a room that the architect selects to be constructed first in full from the rest of the building. So once completed, they have, all the devices, the millwork, the doors, and all of the other finishing touches. So you have an idea of what a real life room will be in full. I have requested and asked for if it's something that the committee could come on to the site to check it out once it's available. They have offered the opportunity to come and look at the site currently under construction via getting, setting up the appointment. So I'm hoping to be able to see that once the mock-up is all done, to share that with the team. So it's pretty exciting. It's making it more real each day as it progresses. So thank you.
That is very exciting to just see. A mock-up room. I never heard of that before, so that's kind of cool. We'll have to go, put that on the agenda of going to check out the mock-up room.
Right. I'll try to do some sort of video, but I don't know if I'll do it justice as the panoramics that Dr. Willett, the videos that he does on the Facebook page, but I'll do my best.
Sounds good.
And a little plug, if you happen to have an Oculus device, which Facebook owns, you can stand in the middle of the entire construction project and look at it in virtual reality. So check it out sometime.
Okay, did not know that. Okay, I do not have a chairperson's report. And so now we're at board action. Dr. Willett, go ahead with your grounds and field agreement.
Very exciting. So the Fields and Grounds Agreement between the town and the Board of Education is something that is typically a year by year. It's reevaluated each year. Both the town and the board look at it for any kinds of adjustments that may need to be made. And so it is typically a collaborative effort between the two. The FFC, takes a look at the Building and Grounds Agreement each time, and is also apprised of minor changes or things that that may be considered to be a town or a board responsibility, and sometimes over the years those change. So certain things like posts on the fields, there were certain small modifications this year to the Fields and Grounds Agreement. One of the more extensive things that was discussed was the turf field. You'll notice that in many years, the track has been part of the budgets, but the turf field was something that was a project some years ago. And as that comes to maturity, there's some discussion about exactly where that turf field and what funding location that should be allocated to. So the Fields and Ground Agreement this year basically says that the town and the board will work collaboratively through the course of the year to determine, where the best place would be for the turf field. And it wasn't specified exactly what capital budget or anything like that it should be in, just more that the town and the board would be working cooperatively to that end. So that was probably the bigger aspect of the field and ground agreement this year. But the rest of it is pretty boilerplate. And if you take a quick look, I think the screen is shared, it's pretty straightforward with respect to, just saying, who does what areas. And then there are maps at the back that define, which area of the, the grounds are things that school staff, custodians take care of, and the board takes care of, that kind of thing. So really what it is an agreement that helps everybody know what their responsibilities are, and everybody play nicely. And it has been serving in that role for many years. So thanks to Pete Staba, Scott Lappin, Dennis Carr, and of course the custodians and the town staff for helping execute this. And, we just need at this point for the Board of Education, if I can move back to that, to approve the agreement so that I can, generally sign it. I will sign it as long as as the board approves it.
Okay. At this point, then I'll entertain a motion to approve so we can get to the discussion.
Christina Plord, I'd like to make a motion to approve the Fields and Grounds Agreement as presented.
Jacob Mari, second.
Okay, discussion. Do any board members have questions in regards to this? Because it was definitely quite a big packet that came in and a lot of information as to who, what, where, and when. No questions? Okay. Oh, Tony has got his blue hand up.
Yeah, I guess, and my question is for Christine there. So am I to understand FFC reviewed this and recommends approval?
Okay, do you want me to speak, Ash? Sorry.
Go ahead, Griffin.
Yes, we did. We had already gone over it, and my understanding is number 21, Walt, was the only addition, and it was that sentence about the collaboratively coming up with funding for the field, the turf field at the high school. So that was the only change from what we had approved. I think it was back in June. So
yeah, there were little things like the bounds of the marker foul poles. There was like a little bit of language on the foul poles, if you recall. But the by far the major thing is the number 21. Yes.
Okay. Yes. So Tony, to answer your question, yes, we basically we approved everything. We did not care for the original language for the turf field because it sounded like it put the entire responsibility on us. So we had asked Dr. Willett to kind of go back and talk to the town, and that's where you'll see that last sentence on 21 was kind of the agreed upon change for the turf field.
Is there a timeline associated with that collaborative investigation?
We will need to come up with a solution by about 3 years.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. Jacob?
Yeah, just to build upon what Christine said, we did review it. I'm happy with it. I definitely want to stay apprised of what's going on with the turf field. It is a very expensive capital improvement, but I think it's satisfactory at this point. It's also overdue, I think, right? The agreement lapsed a couple months ago, right?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's a good sign of the town and the board. I really do act as one entity. They're very cooperative and helpful with each other. So nobody gets too upset about the agreement. But yeah, we generally we've had the whole COVID thing, so we kind of caught up to it, and everybody's signing it now, so long as the board is okay with it.
Yeah. Yeah, I've got nothing to add at this point. I'd just like to stay updated up on that, maybe through FFC and things, just to see what's going on with that.
Okay, anyone else at this moment would like to ask any questions? If not, then I will go to a vote. Okay, all in favor can say aye, any opposed can say nay, or you can abstain. Karen?
Aye.
Jacob?
Aye.
Plord?
Aye.
Griffin?
Aye.
Greenie?
Aye.
Dana?
Aye.
Tony?
Aye.
I'm an aye as well, therefore it passes unanimously. And so, Dr. Willett, you can sign the agreement.
Very
Okay.
exciting. Thank you.
Next up is the public participation. If we could have, there must be comments on this agenda. If we could have the 2 minutes from Tony, he will give the 30-second warning. And if you could, when you speak, list your name and your address at first, and we can go from there. Okay, Liz?
Hey, everyone. First of all, thank you very much to the teachers, the paras, the admin, and the staff for an amazing start to school. Really appreciate it. Secondly, if this doesn't demonstrate why we need an assistant superintendent, I don't know what else does. Please, I beg you, when you go into negotiations for the next budget season, consider an assistant superintendent. And finally, it's amazing. There must have been a short-term memory lapse on the part of some of the board, based on the need for Chromebooks and the approval of Chromebooks now with grants and TEPTO donations. It's unheard that you didn't hear that back in March, April, and May, that we were going to need Chromebooks. That's all. Thank you.
Liz, if you could just do your address for me, please.
54 Josiah Lane.
Thank you. Let's go to Jennifer Galachuk.
Hi. Jen Galashant, 150 Timber Trail. I just wanted to take this opportunity as president of TEPTO to thank the parents and families that participate in all of our fundraising efforts. It is because of your generosity and support of students that this technology donation was possible. I'd also like to specifically thank the members of the TEPTO board, Bethany Lesko, Tina Smith, Linda Scheidel, Jen Reynolds, Diana Gascon, Kristen Overton, and Becky Moore, for their collaboration and unanimous vote to purchase Chromebooks in hopes they will be utilized not only as a pandemic response, but as part of a Tolland Public School one-to-one technology initiative. We believe that our students deserve the advantages that one-to-one tech in schools bring. There are clear benefits to one-to-one tech, including higher testing scores, more paced individualized curriculums, and student equity when students are given this opportunity. Our hope and goal is that this year the Board of Ed will be working on a plan that not only supports one-to-one technology, but plans to develop a sustainable technology program for every student in Tolland Public Schools with devices that are maintained and accessible for all. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, if anyone else would like to speak, please raise your hand. Let it go once, going twice. Okay. We can go to points of information. If anyone would like to speak to anything at this time, you can raise your hand. Tony?
Yep, just a quick. I wanted to offer my apologies to Dr. Willett if he felt that my online question undermined his efforts from what was kind of touched on earlier. It's my focus to educate myself on these educational topics and issues as they relate to the citizens of the town. In addition to my Facebook question, I spoke directly with Dr. Willett. I reviewed reports and articles. I sent emails to educated individuals both on and off this board. All of this better to prepare myself to be able to discuss these issues online. So, Dr. Willett, if it undermined you, that is my apologies. It was not the intent, but I think you know my focus and what I'm trying to do with some of these questions. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Tony. If anyone else at this time would like to speak? Okay. Dr. Will, do you want to touch base on any of the future upcoming? It's pretty much the same as the things that we have had listed on here.
Yeah, I mean, I am planning and trying to work on some rounds. I think the board finds those very helpful. And so especially as we enter budget season, I think they're helpful ways of getting people, into the schools, virtually or otherwise, and interacting with the staff, really gives a good chance to see some of the program elements. And so I'm planning on making sure we get that done. The mental health services initiatives, we are going to move forward with the CERBA instrument. That is the replacement for RACE. So we should be able to have some information, over the span of the next few months to talk about with respect to that as well. Portrait of a Graduate is moving forward as soon as we can, get this education evaluation option period out of the way. We will then be moving into Portrait of a Graduate again, as we had talked about. So you can expect to see some things in the newsletter about that over the span of the next few months. I do want to keep moving that forward despite all of the things that are going on, because I think it's important. And it'll help us as a district get to a good place for goal setting at the end of this year when things settle down, hopefully a little bit. Otherwise, you're aware of these things, and we are going to also put a presentation together on culturally responsive and equity efforts when the board is ready for that. And I assume probably in the next few meetings they probably will be, but that's been brought up a couple of times. Some board members have asked about it, so I am preparing that. And as you know, our ELA supervisor is basically up to bat whenever we're ready. Whether it's October or November, she'll be ready to come up to the plate and give us a presentation on the English language arts programs in the district. So we're ready to go, even though there's a lot of stuff going on. There are a lot of things that we're going to be able to cover this year and take them off our future list.
And we also have, we still didn't speak to Mr. Tolland either. That should be on there as well. We have so many things also on the other additional list. There's this list, that list. We've got a lot of things.
A lot of lists.
Okay, we do not have new business. So tonight, instead of requesting to go past 10, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
This is Dana Philbin. I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Jacob.
Dana Plord, second.
Everybody wants a second. Okay, let's do a roll call. Karen.
Aye.
Jacob.
Aye.
Plord.
Aye.
Griffin.
Aye.
Rainey.
Aye.
Dana.
Aye.
Tony.
Aye.
Aye as well. Therefore, we will adjourn at 9:52, just right under. So have a nice night, everybody, and we will see you in a few weeks. And Dr. Willett, get some sleep.
I will try. You too.
Bye.